Shalom. I'm going to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Kakodash. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father, nation Hebrew. Yahweh Shai is the true name of the Begotten Son. Double honors to the elders and apostles, great millstone of well. Peace and salutations to the elected nation of Israel. The true Hebrew Israelites of the Bible are the so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, and so-called Native Americans, as well as your Israelite foreigners that may look like the other nations but believe this truth. This is Brother Shakol, who the video lesson on how you see this article down here on how ancient Rome reflects in its downfall, and what happened with their tariffs reflects what's happening with Trump ruling the modern day Roman Empire, which is this beast system you read about in Revelation, the 13th chapter in the book of Revelations, which consists of the NATO, the EU, in America, which is the horde that sits on the beast, which is the Edomite system, Esau, the so-called white man. They ran Rome. There are even books about it. We know through prophecy, in that in the Holy Spirit, Edom rules today in the revised Roman Empire. So let's read this, because we know what's going on with the trade tariff wars with Trump and these other countries. So let's read this from the Independent, titled "What Ancient Rome Can Tell Us About the Fate of Trump's Tariffs." When tariffs were used in ancient Rome, they often led to higher prices. And ancient Rome is in the Bible as the fourth beast in Daniel 7, or the legs of iron in Daniel 2. That's ancient Rome. So when tariffs were used in ancient Rome, they often led to higher prices, black markets, and other economic problems. Peter Edwell writes. You see a picture. You see the same architecture in the buildings today as ancient Rome. Same Edomites. Reading on, tariffs are back in the headlines this week with the United States, which is Babylon the Great. President Donald Trump introducing sweeping new tariffs of at least 10% on a vast range of goods imported to the U.S. For some countries and goods, the tariffs will be much higher. Analysts have expressed shock and worry, warning the move could lead to inflation and possibly even a recession for the U.S., which would lead to high prices, job losses, and just economic turmoil here in America. Babylon the Great, chaotic, violence breaking out, uproars, even the MOTB and martial law could be established from this, Lord willing. But we know we're going to see other things as well heating up, and digital currencies being pushed anyways. Trump said by September 30th, around September 30th, wants to make everything cashless. So we know the MOTB is coming soon. But all these prophecies are going to come to pass, and economic turmoil, the crash of the stock market is part of prophecy of Wall Street, which goes with the stock market. But reading on, and so regular everyday life is about to be tough for these Americans, but the servants of the Lord Yahweh Shai are going to be taken care of. Just like the Lord Yahweh Shai feeds the birds, he's going to feed his elect. It says in Matthew the 6th chapter, around verse 26. Reading on, as someone who spent years researching the economy of ancient Rome, it all feels a shade familiar, and we're in the revised Roman Empire. The scriptures say, which is doesn't take a rocket science degree to see that. With the political system, the architecture, the customs, everything around you. In fact, tariffs were also used in ancient Rome, and for some of the reasons that governments claim to be using them today. So they used them back in ancient Rome, the tariffs that Trump's using. Unfortunately for the Romans, however, these tariffs often led to higher prices, black markets, and other economic problems. Roman tariffs on luxury goods. As the Roman Empire expanded and became richer, its wealthy citizens demanded increasing amounts of luxury items, especially from Arabia, India, and China. This included silk, pearls, pepper, and incense. There was so much demand for incense, for example, that growers in southern Arabia worked out how to harvest it twice a year. Pepper had been found on archaeological sites as far as north as Roman Britain. Around 70 CE, the Roman writer Pliny, who later died in the eruption that buried Pompeii, complained that 100 million sesterces, a type of coin, drained from the empire every year due to luxury imports. About 50 million sesterces a year, he reckoned, was spent on trade from India alone. In reality, however, the cost of these imports was even larger than Pliny thought. An Egyptian document known as the Musares Papyrus from about the same time as Pliny wrote shows one boatload of imports from India was valued at 7 million sesterces. Hundreds of boats laden with luxuries sailed from India to Egypt every year. At Palmyra, an ancient city in what's now Syria in the 2nd century CE, an inscription shows 90 million sesterces in goods were imported in just 1 month. And in the 1st century BCE, Roman leader Julius Caesar gave his lover Servilia mother to his murderer Marcus Brutus an imported black pearl worth 6 million sesterces. It's often described as one of the most valuable pearls of all time. So while there was a healthy level of trade in the other direction, with the Romans exporting plenty of metal wares, glass vessels, and wine, demand for luxury imports was very high. And then we get into the point. The Roman government charged a tariff on 25%, known as the Tariffs, on imported goods, and that is what Trump is doing. The ruler of the modern-day Roman Empire. The purpose of the Tariffs was to raise revenue rather than protect local industry. And Trump is not is clearly, his mindset is not geared toward protecting the local industry, while people are comparing him to what Klaus Schwab said. I think it was Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, the WEF, where said you would own nothing and be happy. I believe Trump even said that people will have to learn to sacrifice and to suffer in society. And so Trump is not trying to protect local industry, just like the ancient Rome. These imports mostly could not be sourced in the Roman Empire. Many of them were raw form and used in manufacturing items within the empire. Silk was mostly imported raw, as was cotton. Pearls and gemstones were used to manufacture jewelry. With the volume and value of Eastern imports at such high levels in Imperial Rome, the tariffs collected were enormous. One recent estimate suggests they could fund around 1/3 of the empire's military budget. Inflationary effects, which hyperinflation is in the scriptures, major levels of inflation, Revelation 6 and 6, Lord will get that, which is a measure of wheat for a penny. A measure of wheat is enough for a day's pay. A penny is a day's pay, and a measure of wheat is enough for a loaf of bread. So a loaf of bread for a day's pay, that's maybe a loaf of bread for $200, $300, $400, $500, whatever it is so that is hyperinflation. Food prices going way up. So that's what the scriptures say is going to happen. And the tariffs could cause that. Tariffs caused inflation back then. So it said today economic experts are warning Trump's new tariffs, which he sees as a way to raise revenue and promote U.S.-made goods, could end up hurting both the U.S. and the broader global economy. Today's global economy has been deliberately engineered, while the global economy of antiquity was not. But warnings of the inflationary effects of tariffs are also echoed in ancient Rome as well, ancient Rome too. Pliny, for example, complained about the impacts of tariffs on the street price of incense and pepper. In modern economies, central banks fight inflation with higher interest rates, but this leads to reduced economic activity and ultimately less tax revenue. Reduced tax collection could cancel out increased tariff revenue. It's not clear if that happened in Rome, but we do know the emperors took inflation seriously because of its devastating impact on the soldiers' pay. Another one is black markets. Ancient traders soon became skilled at finding their way around paying tariffs to Roman authorities. The empire's borders were so long, traders could sometimes avoid tariff checkpoints, especially when traveling overland. And they could, I'm speaking as a man, but they could bring in another incentive to bring in the MOTB is to stop black markets if those increase with these Trump tariffs. Just speaking as a man, hypothesizing, if you will, spiritually. But this helped strengthen black markets, which the Roman administration was still trying to deal with in the 3rd century when its economy hit the skids and inflation soared. This era became known as the crisis of the 3rd century. I don't subscribe to the view that you can draw a direct line between Rome's high tariffs and the decline of the Roman Empire, but it's certainly true that the inflation that tore through 3rd century Rome weakened it considerably. And just as it was for Rome, black markets loom as a potential challenge for the Trump administration too, given the length of its borders and the large volume of imports. But the greatest danger of the new U.S. tariffs is the resentment they will cause, especially among close allies as Australia. Rome's tariffs were not directed at nations and were not tools of diplomatic revenge. Rome had other ways of achieving that, and so you see the effects of the tariffs on ancient Rome in which basically weakened it, and eventually Rome fell. And so I wanted to first I'll start with this. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 9. The thing that hath been, it is the thing, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. So things repeat themselves. So what's happening in what has happened in ancient Rome is repeating itself in the modern day Rome. So it's like history repeating itself. And this is what the Lord Yahweh is doing. Let's read this again. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 9. The thing that has been is the thing which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. So the tariffs weaken ancient Rome, and the tariffs are weakening the modern day Roman Empire. And so I want to get some scriptures on how America is the modern day Rome. This is Daniel chapter 7, and I'll start at verse 7. After this verse 7 is the 4th beast, which deals with the ancient Roman Empire. Verse 8 we'll get to America, but verse 7, Daniel chapter 7 verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. So, Book of Daniel 7, it goes into 4 beasts, which represent 4 heathen empires, which the 4th is the ancient Rome, made by the Edomites. Dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. The great iron teeth represent its military, and they even used iron in their military. They're the strong military. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. It was diverse through the Senate, because the other kingdoms before it ruled they would reign, the king would reign, and their son would reign, and continue like that. But Rome was diverse because it would rule with the Senate. They had a term called SPQR, stand for Senatus Populusque Romanus. And so they ruled by Senate, and so that's how they were diverse from these other kingdoms. And they had 10 horns. You were the 10 horns back then, which were in league with ancient Rome, which I forget the name, Slovakia. And then you also got the 10 horns today, the EU. And then I'll try to think of some of the names of the ancient 10 horns. They were in league with ancient Rome back then. Was it the Lombards, the Sueves, the Anglo-Saxons? I'm not gonna remember them all. I'll put them in the description. Those are all I remember. But you know, they were in league with ancient Rome back then. You also got the 10 horns today, which is the EU. Verse 8. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. So with ancient Rome, and then ancient Rome fell and then was revised, and then there was a little horn, which is America, is the revival of the fourth beast of ancient Rome, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Those three are the Spanish, the French, and the British, which has American colonial history, and there were different wars fought between them. There was the Spanish-American War, French-American War, and the War of Independence, or the Revolutionary War, fought between Britain and America. So this is three plucked up by the roots, the Spanish, the French, and the British. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. And so this is the revised Roman Empire that were in the little horn, Daniel 7. Let's go here. This is Revelation chapter 13. In verse 3, it reads, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death," because ancient Rome fell. Edom, Rome fell. And Jake ended up taking over. Esau was cast into the bottomless pit. Europe, in Revelation the 20th chapter, for that 1,000-year period, the Dark Ages, the Holy Roman Empire, when Jake was ruling, the Byzantine Empire. But Edom, Rome was done. The so-called white man ruling, he was put in a lower state, and Jake took over Rome. So it said, "And I saw one of his heads as a wounded death." So Rome fell, Edom, Rome, and his deadly wound was healed. So Edom, Rome would be healed through the rebirth, the Renaissance period. The Renaissance means rebirth. So Esau came back into power and established that little horn, sailed the seas, if you will, and colonized, raped, robbed, and murdered the Israelites and all these nations over the earth, and created this beast system, the little horn, in Babylon the Great, and we find ourselves in this captivity to this day, but we're prophesying against this place, and its destruction is coming, and them tariffs, it is one sign of the destruction, which economic turmoil is over in the prophecies of the scriptures. The violence surrounding when people are all hell breaks loose in society. It said, we'll read this again, Revelation chapter 13, verse 3. "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." And so this deadly wound was healed during the Renaissance period, and Esau was able to revise his Roman Empire because the Lord Yahweh said it would happen. That's why you had all those black rulers of Europe, the so-called black rulers of Europe, I must say, Slovakia, which were Israelites of the southern kingdom, including Benjamin and Levi. Esau was in the lowest state after he fell out of power in Rome. Jake took over Rome. You have names Nerva and Septimius Severus. Nerva was the first one, 96 AD. And then Esau came back into power in the Renaissance period after that 1,000 years in the bottomless pit was fulfilled in Revelation 20. And then he took over and again raped, robbed, and murdered the earth. He had his blessing of the fatness of the earth, which he got, and his blessing of the sword, which he clearly has. And then World War III would be his end, and the Lord Yahweh coming back would be his end, and we would see economic turmoil before that happens. Then let me skip down. This is Revelation chapter 13. In verse 14, "And it deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And you receive miracles concerning the microchip, which is the mark of the beast." You read in verse 16 and 17, which is the mandate microchip implant. That's the mark of the beast. And there would be different miracles surrounding that, like making a blind to see, and paralyzed people to walk and move around. The mind reading thing that's going on with Elon Musk, we're seeing these happen. The scriptures also say the spirits of devils work miracles. And then we read the miracles in the sight of the beast, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast right here. And so there will be different miracles with that microchip, even in this beast system. And then again, the image of the beast is how the system reflects ancient Rome. So ancient Rome fell. We read verse 3. And then the deadly wound was healed. And then there will be the image of the beast, which is how the system reflects ancient Rome. That's why you see ancient Rome around you. Um, you see Capitol. One example is Capitol Hill and Capitoline Hill is a way that this system clearly reflects ancient Rome. The political system, the architecture, the ways of life, all were literally in revised Rome. The Roman numerals, the Latin terms, um, um, in the law, in these laws, we are in the revised Roman system. The Edomites system. Then so that's the image of the beast. Is how the system reflects ancient Rome. I want to get this one as well. This is Daniel chapter 2. Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 are similar because it goes into the same four heathen kingdoms. But it's a different, it's laid out differently. So the Daniel chapter 2 and verse 31. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold. So this image, this statue, Nebuchadnezzar's dream, is four heathen kingdoms with different metals attached to these kingdoms. They represent these different kingdoms. The head of fine gold is ancient Babylon. Your Nebuchadnezzar, his breast and his arms of silver. That's the ancient Medo-Persian Empire. His belly and his thighs of brass. That's the ancient Greek Empire, which is the his belly and his thighs of brass were the ancient Greece Empire, which was the first Edomite Empire. So the breast and the arms of silver. That's the Medo-Persian Empire. His belly and his thighs of brass. That's the ancient Greek Empire. The leopard in Daniel 7. The first Edomite rulership. Verse 33. And his legs of iron. That's Rome. We read the great iron teeth in Daniel 7. The fourth beast. That's Rome. And then it said in his feet, part of iron and part of clay. The feet, part of iron and part of clay. That will be the revised Roman Empire. So the legs of iron. That's Rome. The feet of iron, part of iron and part of clay. That's the revised Roman system. And so on. Again, the deadly wound was healed. The head wound was dead. The deadly wound was healed. They made it the image of the beast. Their miracles are the fourth beast fell, but then was revised to the little horn after 1,000 years in a Renaissance period. And so now we're in the feet and the toes of part of iron and part of clay. There's the revised iron Roman system. Verse 34, thou sawest till that a stone was cut out with thy hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. And so that stone is Yahushua coming back to take these heathen down, and on his head will be many crowns, it says in Revelation 19, because the Lord Yahushua is coming back to take these heathen down, take their positions of power, and Yahushua is going to take his place on the throne. The Lord is also going to come back with fire. Luke 12 and 49 to send fire on the earth with laser beams and destroy America and bring the second death to lake of fire and destroy all these kings and their militaries that try to fight against them. And so this feet and the toes is the last rulership before our kingdom, which is also Yahweh's kingdom. Which we're gonna skip down. To verse 40. Daniel chapter 2 verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. So the Roman Empire, the iron, the fourth kingdom, the legs of iron. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, which is the NATO and the EU, the revised Roman iron system, mixed with iron and clay, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Um, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So this iron in the this feet and the toes, part of iron and part of clay, is this revised Roman system. And they would be divided amongst each other. Esau has always been divided amongst each other. Mark 3 says a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand and had the end. So Esau is coming to his end. The feet represent the end, the feet and the toes. And one of them tariffs of ancient Rome coming back today is just in a revised Roman system. This revised iron system is another sign of its end. And this weakening of these feet and the toes with the iron and clay, part of that would be economically. We've been seeing that for some time. And so let's read it again from Daniel chapter 2 and verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron against ancient Rome, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, the great iron teeth, Daniel 7, breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. Verse 41, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron. They got the strong military, like ancient Rome. They got these missiles, Esau's blessing of the sword. He's been given that red horse that took peace from the earth, that killed one another. And it was given unto him a great sword. The missiles and Esau's blessing, and Esau has always been fighting against each other, and Esau is still divided to this day. So reading on, but there shall be in the strength of it iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. As the toes of the feet were part of iron, because Rome, and part of clay, because this will be the revival of Rome, and where you had the Treaty of Rome bringing forth the European Economic Community, the EEC, turning into the EU. So the kingdom shall be partly, so this revised Roman system, the iron and part of clay, the Rome, but the revised Rome. So the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, because they're adding to this revised Roman system. They're adding countries. They're fulfilling Esau's fulfilling their blessing of the fatness of the earth. In this beast system, this revised Roman system. And it says, but they shall not cleave one to another, because they have differences in viewpoints and opinions, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And so in this revised Roman system, Esau is divided. This is Rome. This is Rome all over again. And so again the feet represent the end. And so there's this from the iron to the iron, ancient Rome, the deadly wound. There was a head wounded to death. The deadly wound was healed, and now we're living in the time of the feet and the toes. And there's division amongst the system, and eventually the beast is starting to hate the whore, which we're seeing the beginnings of that now with Trump and these European allies, and they're going to shoot their missiles on this place pursuant to Revelation 17 and 16. And so we're at the end of this. Then what would happen after the Lord Yahushua comes back and takes Edom down, Isaiah 63, to take Esau down, who was just coming from Edom with dyed garments from Basra, and to save the elect of Israel from this captivity. Verse 44 would happen. Daniel chapter 2, verse 44, and in the days of these kings shall the power of heaven, Yahweh set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So that's the kingdom of Jacob, the kingdom of Yahweh, the house of David, which Yahweh will be ruined, the throne of David. And King David will also be ruined. And then the Israelites, and all these heathen kingdoms that we read on Daniel 2, and the rest of the heathen kingdoms are going to be in subjection to slavery and ruled with a rod of iron, start by the Israelites, starting with the Lord Yahushua, is what the scriptures say. And so, the divisions, the economic turmoils of this system is all prophecy, and we're in the feet and toes the end of this system. Now I actually wanted to get that Mark 3 real quick that I quoted. This is Mark chapter 3 in verse 23. And he called them unto him and said unto them in parables, How can Satan cast out Satan? And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. So then, this revised Roman system of the feet, the iron, and the toes, there's divisions amongst it. So the house divided cannot stand, but hath an end. So Esau is going down. His house is going down. And this revised Roman system is crumbling, economically, militarily, and it will completely go by nuclear missiles, which you also read in Daniel 7th chapter. Then I also did want to get something real quick on the economic downfall of this place. Is Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 11. How ye inhabitants of Magtesh. Magtesh was an ancient merchant city, Israel. For all the merchant people are cut down, and it represents Wall Street prophetically. For all the merchant people are cut down, for all they that bear silver cut off, and that's going to be when the Wall Street crashes, the stock market go down, what Trump is purposely bringing it down. And it's going to affect globally, in that we're seeing these tariffs and what's Trump doing to affect the global economy. It's going to cause all hell to break loose. They're going to bring forth the MOTB, the mark of the beast, the digital system. So we're seeing the end of the Esau system, and Rome is playing itself over again with these tariffs, weakening this kingdom, and is eventually leading to its fall. So this fall is going to be destroyed by the complete nuclear fire, and the Lord Yahushua coming back to ladies from the chariots, and this great salvation of the Israelites, of the elect, from the land of the north and all the lands will be scattered. Lord's word unnumbered. But this is Daniel chapter 7 and verse 11. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. So that's a nuclear destruction of this little horn, America, Babylon the Great. That's how the revised Roman Empire will be completely destroyed. And verse 13, by the Lord Yahushua. Then chapter 7, verse 13, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. So the Lord Yahushua coming back in the clouds, in the fathership, with the other holy angels, the archangel Michael, and the other so-called UFOs, the chariots, the clouds. Revelation 1:7 says, Behold, he come over clouds, and every eye shall see him. Verse 14, and there was given him dominion in them which pierced him. He was pierced by the Romans, the Edomites, back in ancient Rome, and we're in the revised Roman Empire, and those same Edomites are back today, and they're going to be destroyed in the reincarnation, because no one's 2,000 years old. When it said that every eye shall see him, even they which pierced him. Verse 14, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, talking about the Lord Yahushua, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. So the Israelites ruin, and the Lord Yahushua ruin, after Yahushua, that stone, who takes out the feet and the toes, and the Lord Yahushua, which on his head will be many crowns, and come back to destroy Edom, and all these heathen, gonna bring fire on the earth, is gonna destroy these heathen in the system, bring the second death. The nuclear missiles will bring destruction as well to Babylon and Great America, and the elect will be delivered, and then we'll come back down and rule with the Lord Yahushua. So we're at the end of this man's system. I hope this is an edifying lesson. With that, I'm going to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Kokodash. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father in the ancient Hebrew. Yahweh Shai is the true name of His only begotten Son. The one said, "Others and possibly males to know well." Shalom.